You know what, y'all? Audio is a format that I am still learning, and I didn't know that when you are like gesticulating wildly and you you know, touch your mic guard, you can hear it. And like if you
Yes.
move your mic stand, you can hear it. And now my shit is buzzing. God damn
Well, don't
it.
worry. You will have an end of quarter review from co-producer and editor Evan. All the things that could be done different. I can get one too. There's a happy medium because you always have the most interesting thumbnails because you're going like this all the time. And I am staying in frame and not articulating my face very much. So I don't have very interesting faces to pull thumbnails of. So I need to open my eyes more and smile.
Brother, sibling,
Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we loved from our childhood and some that we may be discovering for the very first time, centered around a different theme every season.
I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan.
And this week's movie is Spy Kids, an absolutely wild ride of a kids movie from the early 2000s. Our theme this season is, appropriately, siblings. The Spy Kids are siblings.
The Spy Kids are siblings. They are spies and siblings who are siblings and spies. Oh, man, this movie is not at all what I was expecting it to be.
Mm-hmm.
In like a delightful way, but also
Mm-hmm.
while I was watching it. So full disclosure, I watched this morning, and I think I have kind of a history of picking like the weirdest movies to watch like the morning before we record. Like
Yes.
I watched 12 Monkeys in the morning, which was a weird tone to set for the day. In the same
Right.
way that I feel like this was a weird tone to set for my day as the like first thing I'm engaging with.
Do you
Um,
think it will color the rest of your day? You will be thinking of
probably,
bendy, melty nightmare faces for the rest of the day.
probably, yeah. And yeah, I definitely was like, wow, I'm so happy that I don't smoke weed and didn't think like I'm gonna watch a silly kids movie and get high before I watch it because I was like I can't think of a worse movie to be high while watching. Um,
Right.
that you think is innocuous, right? That like you think is just like, oh, it's a kids movie, whatever. And then
Yeah.
is like takes you on a mind bending journey. So I will say I'm just gonna go right into our connections to the movie. Um, so like I said, this is the
Zero.
first time I've ever
Nothing.
watched
Nada.
Nada, nothing. This is the first time I've ever watched this movie. It came out in 2001, so I was 11. I was like the target audience for it, but I just never watched it. You know, our family was slightly going off the rails in 2001. Not a ton of movies that we went to go see in theaters. Um,
Right.
and so I never watched it at the time, and I don't know if it's just like I didn't sleep very well last night, and in keeping with our family, I had like really intense, disturbing, stressful, strange, vivid dreams last night, all
Hmm.
night. And there's so much goddamn pollen in the air that like I don't think my body can function right now. So I don't know if it was like the combination of those factors and that whatever, but I was like, is this the best way to watch this movie or is this like the worst possible
Slightly out of your
preempting
mind.
of this viewing experience? Yeah, exactly. And the only thing that I can remember about this movie is from 2001. A friend of the show, Nancy, got very
Nancy
mad at
Vega.
her daughter, Sophia, because we were like at a soccer game or something. I don't remember. But Sophia wouldn't stop saying, oh shit, taki mushrooms. because like we were 11 and we weren't allowed to swear. And Nancy just
Right.
got really mad because she was like, I know what you're trying to say, or something. Yeah, prior to watching it this morning, that was like my literal only awareness of this film. And going into it, I was thinking, like, oh, that must be a thing that's said like all the time in the movie, or like, oh, that must be like a catchphrase. Nope, it said one time.
Yeah, I
So that's,
literally don't even remember when it was said. I actually can't place in the movie when it happens.
dude, I
Now that you
can't
said it, I'm
remember.
like, it must be in the movie, but I'm not aware of
It
where that happened.
is. I am going to be honest with you. I watched this film about 3 hours ago, and I couldn't tell you. Uh, yep.
What happened?
Yeah, or like when the line is said. Like I don't
Oh,
know.
when the
I have
line
no
is said, yeah.
clue. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Because
It's like super fresh to you and you're not aware of the line being said.
nothing. This is going to be, I feel, similar to the Galaxy Quest episode when I was like kind of feeling under the weather and I was a little bit sick. And I was just sort of
Mhm.
like, I don't know, man. If shit happens, like you talk, I talk, it's a whole thing. And we do it for about an hour or 2 hours or whatever. And it's fine.
Yes.
I'm, my eyes both feel like I am aware of every single micron of space in my eyes because it feels like there is itchy sand inside of them.
Oh
And
God.
my head hurts so much that it's
Oh
like I can
no.
feel it
Oh
pulsing
babe.
in my shoulder.
Oh
And
no.
I got scratched
Darling.
today.
Oh
I
no.
got
Do you have your lorazepam?
That's an anti-anxiety medication that I don't take anymore because it makes me throw up and black out. But I
Mhm.
also like I got scratched with like just a little branch and it's causing this like massive allergic reaction on my arm right now. Like there's so much
We
pollen.
don't need to make
Sorry.
the our other no, I was gonna say we don't need to actually make our sister YouTube show, My Beautiful Fucked Up Body, a comedic documentary about Meredith's bodily
Beautiful
misfunctions,
fucking
which has been an idea that we've been kicking around for a long time. Because we basically have a little check-in at the beginning of this podcast every week
It's
that is
true.
the show.
That is that show. That's just me being like nothing's working right. I'm so fucked.
My whole body, I'm a
I know.
blueberry. I'm like a Willy Wonka child. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds really tough, but but shit happens, I guess. And you're gonna get through it. You always do. Pollen happens.
Chillin' with a Miller Lite. Chillin' with a Miller Lite. It's Saturday, Sunday. Okay, there you're
There
back.
we go. We're back. Yeah, let me get into my connection to the movie. I also don't really have one beyond knowing that it existed and was coming out at the time. Uh, I was definitely older than the target demographic. In 2001, I would have been 14. So, yeah, just a little too old getting into high school. Although, to be fair, I was um, watching a lot of SpongeBob SquarePants at the time. So,
You really were.
I still loved kids things, to be fair. But yeah, 14 obviously a little too old for target demographic for this movie. I think this is definitely aimed at the younger than 12 audience. Uh, and I think it does a great job. My other connection to this movie is just being aware, even at the time, that it was a Robert Rodriguez movie. Robert Rodriguez, for people of my age bracket who loved movies and probably even a little older, sort of in this pocket of millennial, like Gen X people, is one of those filmmakers who is very who has existed for the pure love and joy of making films. He is in that generation of filmmakers kind of singular. And so because I was a fan of other movies of his before this, and was a fan of other movies of his after this. Even though I skipped it at the time, I was like, oh, interesting that Robert Rodriguez is doing like a family film now. And there's lots of interesting history there that I will get into when we get to that. But that's my connection to the movie. This was my first time actually watching it. And to be perfectly honest, I was delighted at how cheery and family oriented and fucking occasionally demented it was. It's like a movie from the 80s when they were just like allowing kids movies to be fucking nightmare fuel, and I absolutely love that. I'm like, why can't we make movies like this anymore where things are just fucking demented and maniacal? Like, kids can handle this stuff.
Yeah, I had this thought as I was watching this movie, and I was like, if I had watched this movie for the first time when I was 11, when it came out, right? And I was a kid, would I have had less of a like, this is the stuff of nightmares reaction to it? Because like,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes when you're a kid, you just sort of like take the things that are given to you if they're put in like a friendly package
Yeah.
or whatever, that
You
you're
just
just like,
accept things that
here's this
come to
piece of
you.
media.
Yeah.
And you don't question the actual insanity of it. Because let me tell you, as an almost 35-year-old person, the only thing I could think was, well, this is an acid trip gone horribly wrong that would haunt me for ages if it happened. This is terrifying, and it's for children.
Right. So awesome. I wish they made more movies with this kind of aesthetic choice.
I know.
So yeah, so that's my
Yeah.
that's my connection to the movie. Now, although the plot is is maybe the least interesting part of this movie, I do feel like it's worth giving a little bit of of our typical chat GPT plot synopsis. So I will read.
Wait, before you read the plot synopses from the JPT,
Yes.
I just deleted everything we had in our notes and I wrote, legit, who even cares? You don't watch this movie for the plot. Please continue with your synopsis of the plot.
I disagree a little bit, but let's just get people caught up to speed. I mean, I agree. It's not a movie for plot. It's a movie for kids. Okay. Here's what ChatGPT shat out a few moments ago. Spy Kids is a family action adventure film that follows Carmen and Junie Cortez, two seemingly ordinary siblings who discover that their parents, Gregorio and Ingrid, are actually retired secret agents, played by the great Antonio Banderas and Luca. I looked at her name multiple times trying to memorize it, and I know her in lots of things. Carla Gugino.
Great. Carla Gugino.
Oh my god,
and P.S.
she's so hot.
P.S.
So hot.
She's so hot. P.S. Like, they fuck. Like, I know this is a kids movie, and it's never like explicitly said, but I'm like, oh, they fuck.
Yeah, well, it's Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas fucks every woman he's on screen with, whether it's in the real world or just in his brain and in their brain. It's like, come on. The man has charisma up the wazoo.
He got the smolder. He got the Riz. Like, what are you gonna do? Okay,
Totally.
Sorry. Continue your GPT.
Have you ever seen the original Interview with a Vampire?
I haven't, but I've seen clips from it.
Oh, we should do that if we do like a vampire season. It's so good, and Antonio Banderas is incredible in it. Oh my god, he's so good. As a vampire, you can imagine.
Yes.
It's his first English language role, I'm pretty sure.
What?
Anyway. Yeah,
Holy
it's wild.
Shit. Wow.
Okay, anyway. And I was looking up online interesting factoids about this. Apparently, Ingrid, Carla Gugino, is for many people their kind of queer awakening. Like young women would watch her in this movie and be like, I'm feeling something, what's going on? And there's like a
Yeah.
really cute little interview where she's on a red carpet like within the last 5 years, and somebody's like, you were my queer awakening. She's like, lots of people have told me that, I'm so happy for you, you know. It's
Oh,
like,
that's amazing. Because, like,
which is
also,
very
like,
cute.
when she goes into, like, full spy mode and she's not just like, I'm a mom or whatever, and she's in, like, full spy mode, I was like, fucking walking in here looking like a goddamn snack. What is up?
Yeah, she's hot mom all the
Oh,
way for sure.
all the way. All the way.
um
Great.
Okay, so Gregorio and Ingrid are actually retired secret agents. When Carmen and Junie's parents are kidnapped by an eccentric TV show host named Fegan Floop, played by the incomparably great Alan Cummings, who is
My
secretly
favorite
building
character.
yeah, who is secretly building an army of robot children. The kids must spring into action to save them. It's so good. Honestly, this movie is like up there with like Ponyo for me as far as like a filmmaker trying to make a film that feels like it's made by a kid. You know, it's awesome. Okay,
You know
let's keep
what?
going.
Yeah, I have more thoughts about that. Keep going.
Okay. As they navigate a world of high-tech gadgets, sneaky villains, and secret lairs, Carmen and Junie grow from bickering siblings into a confident, capable spy team. Along the way, they uncover hidden truths about their family, outsmart Floop's henchmen, and ultimately save their parents and the world from a sinister plot, which includes a great turn from the great and one and
Oh,
only TV
one and only.
detective turned great actor Monk, Tony Shalhoub, who goes from a minion to Mr. Minion, the
Mr.
henchman
Minion.
turned antagonist who is trying
Uh,
to make the robot children
let's
go
just
to
like
town.
big ups, Tony Shalhoub. We love you on this pod. We love you.
Yeah. Tony Shalhoub's the best. And Robert Patrick is also one of the bad guys, the T-1000 from
That's
Terminator 2
right.
Judgment
Yes.
Day.
I
Yeah,
literally had in my notes, is that the fucking guy from Terminator? And I was like,
it
yes,
is. That's Robert Patrick, the one and only.
I know. I was like, oh, so good. Okay,
He does
round
such a great
about.
turn in The Sopranos as like a hapless, like un what's the word I'm looking for? Like hapless and
Inept.
unintimidating guy who inept, yeah, kind of like just guy who runs a thing and gets the shit kicked out of him by Tony Soprano. So actors, man, you know, you get picked for one because you think you do one thing and then you can also do other stuff, which is great.
Magic. The magic of acting.
Magic, movie
Round us
magic.
out with this GPT.
With colorful visuals, imaginative tech, and a heartwarming focus on family, Spy Kids' blend of action, humor, and sci-fi is an unforgettable. Oops, I read that sentence wrong. That's okay.
You
It's an
did.
unforgettable adventure. You get the idea.
You get it. You know what's up.
Thanks, ChatGPT. This is
Thanks,
going to be great. I'm
ChatGPT.
looking forward to just going all over the place, going full ADHD on this motherfucking
I
podcast because I have a lot to talk about, and I'm
I was
excited to not have a structure around it too
I was
crazily.
gonna say this. I texted Evan last night at like 11 p.m. my time and was like, "Fuck, are we recording tomorrow? Shit, we should probably like watch this movie and take notes and shit."
Yeah.
And Evan just texted back, "Fuckity fuck." But we figured it out. So we're just gonna let our little confirmed and unconfirmed neurodivergent brains have some fun with this one, and you're going to be here for the ride. So let's just go.
Yeah, totally. So to start us off, I mean, I want to give some context as to what makes Spy Kids as a movie, not just as a thing that Robert Rodriguez did, which I want to get into, and not just as a anything else about it that's fun. This movie has actually been accepted into the National Film Registry in the Library of Congress due to its cultural significance
What?
to American culture. Yes, this
Shut
is
up.
true.
Shut up.
No, for real. It is. It has developed a cult following, and I would suspect it. I was trying to do more research, but I suspect it's because it's a movie that it's a kids movie that came out at a time when watching it now, I know that we would probably say this is a very juvenile and silly movie. But if you can imagine, the movies of the time were even more juvenile and
That's
more
true.
intense. And this movie actually focuses a lot on the kids being the heroes, which was not typical. It
That's
focuses on a
true.
Latino family, which was maybe.
True.
I also tried
A
to confirm
blended
this.
Latino family. A blended,
Yes,
like
true.
a white mom and a Latino father.
I suspect she's like Italian or something exotic still
I don't
too,
know.
but
How the
yes,
fuck? I don't give a
essentially.
shit.
and it's hang on, I will just read an excerpt of Roger Ebert's
Oh, please. I wish you
critique at the
would.
time. He gave it a 3.5 out of 4 stars when it came out, calling it
Holy
a
shit.
treasure. Roger Ebert wrote, "Movies like Spy Kids are so rare. Families are often reduced to attending scatological Dumber and Dumbest movies like See Spot Run, movies that teach vulgarity as a value. Spy Kids is an intelligent, upbeat, happy movie that is not about the comedy of embarrassment, that does not have anybody rolling around in dog poop, that would rather find out what it can accomplish than what it can get away with." And I think that that's really kind
Wow.
of great, you know? Like
That is,
he's right.
you know,
Compared to movies of the age, which were basically
yeah.
about see how many poop jokes you can throw in, and many children's movies are still like that. But I think this really kicked off a kind of um, trend in kids movies to actually be about something like that kids of that age can get behind by empowering kids and also sort of giving them superhero
Interesting.
powers and getting more family values, into the movies rather than just being
Oh,
like like
interesting.
poopy poop jokes. So I
That's
think
an
it
interesting angle on it. I hadn't thought about it that way. Because again, like
another
I didn't watch it at the time it came out. But yeah,
totally,
that
yeah.
is true. That is true.
Yeah, and we were like not watching kids movies necessarily at the
No,
time.
our
Like
dad
I
was
was just a
showing
little
you
too
like the
old.
fucking devil's advocate and shit.
Yeah. So that's okay, so that's another interesting piece that brings it into the yeah, here we go. In 2024, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And I think all of
Wow.
these things are partially reasons for that. Um,
Yeah.
This is also funny. In 2001, it was nominated for Best Fantasy Film at the 28th Saturn Awards, one of the prestigious
Oh,
fantasy, science fiction fantasy, but
sweet.
lost to, can you guess what it lost to?
In 2001?
Yes, think about what came out in 2001. This is
Yeah, I
great.
don't know what came out in 2001. Princess
Lord of
Diaries?
the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Shut
so
the
great.
fuck up.
Yeah.
Spy Kids and
Movie. This is why
Fellowship.
movie awards are bullcrap and shouldn't count for anything because they're stupid. It's like Spy Kids and Lord of
Well,
the Rings shouldn't be in the same
how?
categories. They serve completely
How
different
could they
functions.
compare? Oh no. Oh, oh dear.
Anyway, I thought that was fun. Um, let's see. Now,
That is fun.
one last thing that I think is really interesting about the movie is that Robert Rodriguez had always wanted to make family films. Robert Rodriguez, I'll get into this more, but has made action movies before this. There was a guy who told him that Desperado, his sort of very hyper violent sort of action movie, was his kid's favorite movie, and Robert was like, "How old's your kid?" The guy was like 6 years old, and Robert was like, "Oh my god, like a 6-year-old shouldn't be watching this movie." Like I never meant
The
for
audience.
young children to be watching Desperado, you know? And so he felt
Oh
kind of
my God.
like a sense of responsibility to be like, I should make something. Like, the reality is kids are going to watch these things. So like I should make something that kids can watch that will be good for them. And he was very specific about having a movie that didn't have guns in it. And there are no
Yes,
guns in Spy Kids. He was like, the action should be there should be handheld action and martial arts, but I don't want there to be any like guns, projectiles, or even like swords or anything like that. So I think that's kind of cool that he was able to kind of craft and make a story a about something that an action movie that didn't include weapons like that or hyper violence, you know. To finish my thought, I was just saying it's very cool that Robert Rodriguez found a way to make an action movie for kids where the kids were empowered to be the heroes, to be the kid, and he found a way to make an action movie for children that didn't include hyper violent weapons like guns or swords or anything like that. So
yes.
I think that's
The
actually kind of a
only
neat accomplishment.
I want to give it up to the props department too, because the only time that the kids have something that like might be construed as like a gun like thing, it has like
Mhm.
twirling bibble bobbers and lights and stuff, and it kind of looks like something that would like not be out of place in Party Monster. It's
It looks
yeah,
like something,
very
yeah.
possible.
It looks like it reminded me of the classic '90s children's toy Tubers and Zots, which everybody is
Oh,
aware of
tubers
and
and
knows about.
zots. We're all
Yes,
very aware of tubers and zots. But it did
yes,
look like that, and it also looked like it should be dispensing like doses of ecstasy. Like that was what.
definitely. Yeah, it looks like a thing you put your tongue up to yeah, get a tab of
Yes,
acid.
yes.
I really want to talk about just like the monsters and the tech, just to give people a flavor of like what fucking wild shit is in
Oh,
this movie. Um,
yes, I went on a bit of a deep dive on the creature shop that did the makeup
yeah.
and the stuff for this. Like, they're incredible. But so like, but really quick, kind of before we jump to that, I know you talked
Mhm.
a little bit about Robert Rodriguez,
Yeah.
but one of the things, so Robert Rodriguez, if I'm not mistaken, wrote a book, a memoir called Rebel Without a Crew.
Yes.
Um, can you walk me through a little bit just about the type of director that Robert Rodriguez is? He writes, he directs, he edits, he does musical scoring. Like, he's a very like multi-purpose director, and it has like, when you
Yes.
look at his filmography, it's really varied. Um
Yeah.
like
Very,
he's
very varied.
he's somebody that just wants to make movies.
Yes.
I don't know. Can you give us a little more context in terms of like the types of movies he's made, his history, your awareness of him, like his sort of place or the seat that he holds in the larger like film industry a little bit? Because I do think it's interesting because this movie was one that I was like, Robert Rodriguez directed this? Like, what the fuck? Like, this guy?
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. Robert Rodriguez was one of those seminal directors of the early '90s, coming up in the age when independent cinema was really um, at its zenith in the '90s. Independent cinema has come and gone, but the '90s we think of as a very obvious point in time for that. I mean, there's all kinds of great independent directors that came out of that era, sort of untethered from the traditional studio system, and that was Quentin Tarantino, obviously very famously. Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino are good buddies and made From Dusk Till Dawn together back in the day. Um, Man, I also want to just shout out my former instructor Allison Anders, also a great director from that time period, female director Cheryl Dunye, loads of other great filmmakers of the time. David Lynch, who was making movies in the 80s. Anyway, the 90s was a big time for that. And Robert Rodriguez was right at the center of that. And he made a short film called Bedhead. And then he went to make his first feature film, El Mariachi, which is an action movie made for, I believe, let me look at the title of his book. Yeah, which he made for $7,000.
Which is insane.
So Robert Rodriguez is Mexican or of Hispanic origin, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, moved to Austin at a young age, I believe. He loved watching like bootlegged movies from Mexico, and like kind of as a young kid would start editing them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a little foggy on, it's been a long time since I've read Rebel Without a Crew. But essentially he like did medical experiments where they would like, he would go in and like get
That's
paid thousands
right.
of dollars to be part of these long-term medical
That's
studies. And he
right.
was basically like saving up money to like make movies with. And he did all
Really,
kinds of crazy shit to get started.
really putting your body on the line for your art in a big way. I remember that in the first part of
Yeah.
Rebel Without a Crew, he's talking about like being in multiple unrelated medical studies at the same time and going for ones
Yeah.
that were like more dangerous because they paid more money, and like
Yep.
having weird reactions to shit because he was in like multiple medical studies that were doing multiple
Yeah.
things. Totally wild.
Seems like the medical community loved him because they're like, oh, now we can see what happens when all these things
Yeah.
are happening to you. And
Oh,
he's
this
like,
is amazing.
great.
He's like,
Yeah.
I haven't eaten for 37 hours. Please.
But during all this time, he's sort of spending a lot of time in these medical facilities. Some of them you have to sort of be isolated to be part of the control group. And during that time, he's like writing El Mariachi and writing other things and keeping these production diaries of what it's like to be sort of, dedicated to getting the money to make these movies. So in true like run and gun style, he takes like a few people, himself included, and a camera and some sound equipment down to Mexico in a place I forget where, but a place that his family had some connection to, and just makes El Mariachi, which is an action movie.
Yeah, just
And
does
they're
it.
doing all kinds of crazy things. Like they have like to get an explosion of a guy like flying over a house, they have their actor on a swing set behind the house, and then he launches himself over the house. They time an explosion, and then he like falls on an old mattress on the other side of the house.
Amazing.
It's just wild shit. So it's like, it's probably pretty dangerous, but like there's no unions involved. And it's just like 3 or 4 people making a movie because they want to, and it's fun, like, so that's the kind of school of thought that Robert Rodriguez comes from. But importantly, he's also a very savvy business person.
Yes.
He recognizes early on that there is a huge gap in the market in the Mexican direct-to-video market, and basically distributes his own VHS tapes, if I'm not mistaken. Again, it's been a long time since I've read the book, but essentially like distributes these out into the Mexican home video market and starts making profits. This is at a time before streaming, right? When there was still, and VHS tapes were cheap enough to be able to make copies of your film and distribute it. And he has the master copy, so he can make as a high quality copies as you can. Anyway, doing that, he starts to get like, traction, and I don't remember the exact story, but somebody gets a hold of this and he makes a sequel. Essentially, Desperado is essentially a remake of El Mariachi with a higher budget. But he makes Desperado, the sequel to El Mariachi, gets Antonio Banderas in it, and does all kinds of, and it becomes a huge hit. People loved Desperado. And it's the second movie in what he calls the Mexico trilogy. So that's the beginnings of Robert Rodriguez. And of course, he is just a person who loves making movies. He has a deep like love of cinema from his childhood, but he's also clearly like not uh attracted to highbrow things, right? He is just sort of like, just make it, you know? Um, and if I think that Robert Rodriguez is maybe the closest thing we have to like a independent media mogul these days,
Yeah.
because he is in my mind he's very similar to like a George Lucas or like a, I don't know, even like a Louis B. Mayer from the past, like these people who came up and kind of were okay. Louis B. Mayer made good movies, but like you think about George Lucas's career, like Star Wars, you know, I'm sorry, older nerds, but Star Wars is essentially a kids movie,
It
and
is.
and
And
he
that's
has
kind of how
made,
it was marketed a little bit.
I
Like,
think so, yeah.
yeah.
And he made a name for himself and a business model off of making movies like that. Um, George Lucas came up at a time when you could be wildly successful, but Robert Rodriguez also found the pockets in the marketplace where you could market action movies and horror movies and family movies, and those are all part of his genetic makeup. Um, Spy Kids is also super interesting because he made a bunch of deals with people, like with theaters and Dimension Films, who distributed the movie, I think. And there was all these things at the time of like Spy Kids. He just made very savvy business decisions where like he teamed up with Pop Secret, the old microwave
Yep.
popcorn things, and there were like Pop Secret toys and memorabilia that you would buy at the movie theater that would
Yep.
come with screenings of the movie and stuff. So he just became a very savvy business person, and similar to George Lucas, who never liked being in Hollywood physically, and always wanted to have his studio back in Northern California,
Yeah.
Marin County, where he's from, uh, as soon as he could. I mean, really right away, because he was so low budget when he started. Robert Rodriguez has since created multiple studios, um, starting with Los Hooligans Productions, which became Troublemaker Studios, and has set them and has based them all in Austin, Texas, his home
Wow.
city and state. So he is one of the main reasons for the explosion of film production in Austin, Texas, and why it is one of the hubs of film production there. Uh, he's made multiple studios and he's created a television network, El Rey Network. He's got 4 or 5 different studios, all that do different things. Some of them are specifically horror movies. Some of them are just to sort of bring up new and burgeoning directors who you wouldn't have heard of in the low budget field. And some of them, that are the ones that have stuck around, have like multiple deals with Hollywood studios to distribute movies and shows. Which, you know, he's started a lot of the other studios to get more creative freedom back so that he could make more interesting things. Um, so he's just a very, very like savvy business person, on top of being a person who loves the childlike naivete of making fun movies, you know, whether that's
Yeah.
action or horror or family oriented kids flicks like the Spy Kids franchise. And the Spy Kids franchise, and it is a franchise. This series
This
has
is the
like
first
5
of,
sequels or
I was
something.
gonna say, this is
Hmm.
the first of like 4 or 5 movies.
Yes, and an animated TV series and all kinds of things. And his production studio, Troublemaker Studios, this was really maybe like the first big hit for them and put them on the map as a production company, not just as Robert Rodriguez's thing. The movie was made for like, wait a minute, let me see if I can find the actual numbers. But it was made for like $35 million and grossed 147 million
Insanity.
worldwide. So
Insanity.
it's just he is a person who in his time had his finger on the pulse of like what underserved markets really wanted. And I think especially within the Latino movie going circles, he was like, there are no kids movies for like Latinx kids, right? And he recognized that there's not like these action movies for like Hispanic, for Mexican people, and he found those pockets of the market. Spy Kids is sort of between uh, Desperado, From Dusk Till Dawn. He makes Spy Kids, and then after it, 4 years later, he makes Sin City. So,
Yeah.
which is kind of an awesome movie, especially if you're into that kind of high
George Miller.
contrast.
Yeah.
Frank Miller,
Frank
yeah,
Miller. Sorry, Frank Miller.
yeah, sort of look and feel. So anyway, so that's Robert Rodriguez, and yeah, I really think he's one of sort of like the like a modern equivalent of a George Lucas or like an old studio head, because he has these smart ideas that come across as very like lowbrow things, but like as a person, he has found opportunities to keep making movies. Like he got out of the I'm just an artist mindset very early and is like, no, 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 I'm an entertainer, I'm a producer. But on top of all this, Robert Rodriguez also um, makes his own music. He has, I forget the name of his band, or I don't know if they're still around, but it's like very, very crass name of his band. Wait, let me look.
I know. I was like, wait, you keep talking. I'll look it up.
Okay. And so he obviously writes all his own films. He produces many of them with his production partner and wife, I think, whose name is Elizabeth Avellán, and also edits his own movies and writes some of the songs. So he kind of like has, clearly he has made a business model off of this thing that he really, really loves doing. Like he's not just there for the clout. He's there because he like wants to make movies. And of course, you know, him and Quentin Tarantino back in, let me make sure I get it right, back in 2007, made the Grindhouse, which is a sort of love letter to the B movie Grindhouse, sort of horror, you know, comedy movies, very low budget movies that both Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez love and have an affinity for. So he's one of those figures to filmmakers that I think, you know, his movies aren't always the best or the most critically acclaimed, but he keeps making them, and he keeps making things that for a certain audience are like super entertaining, and you know, or at least he's trying to make them as entertaining as possible. And as a filmmaker, as a creative person, I think he has some really wild, great ideas. I mean, just Spy Kids itself, I really love the opening like wedding sequence when the
The
two
opening wedding sequence is
people are getting
great.
together. There's some really great filmmaking tricks going on there that are just, there's just lots of fun editing. It's zippy. The camera is always in motion in an interesting way, and he creates a kind of fairy tale environment in that. There's a lot of sequences. Like as a whole, Spy Kids, you can argue about its quality overall as a movie, but there's some very specific sequences I think that are really, really fun and well put together and done on a budget. Like there are some, like arguably not all of the CG is great, but for the time, I'm actually kind of impressed with some of the sequences that they came up with.
I knowing what their budget was and knowing the time that this movie was made, same. I'm like, wow, for the like budget and time that you had, like the CG's like not bad. Look, from a modern lens, like, is it fantastic? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it's like
Oh,
better
and
than it should be.
yes. Oh, and this movie introduces the greatest character of all cinematic history, Machete. played by Danny Trejo.
Machete!
Oh my God. Years later, in Grindhouse, Robert Rodriguez made a trailer for a movie called Machete, who is a different alternate universe take on the character that Danny Trejo plays in this movie. And then a few years after that, in 2010, he made the feature film Machete, which to me is like the ultimate culmination of all that Robert Rodriguez is capable of. Machete is the dopest movie ever. It's back when you could only get movies on Netflix on DVDs. I got the DVD of Machete and watched it like 3 days in a row, like straight through. I love that movie so much. It's so much fun. Danny Trejo is incredible. So, and I had no idea that the kind of character is more or less like introduced in this movie. So that made me very happy to know.
So it was so funny because I was watching Spy Kids, and there's this like kind of running thing of like, oh, you know, these spy gadgets and whatever are made by Machete products or something.
Yeah.
And then you meet Danny Trejo. It's like he's Machete, and I was like, wait, I'm sorry, is this the origin story? What is happening right now?
I know, it's so cool. Yeah,
like
Machete?
Go off, Robert Rodriguez. Like, we love you. We love you.
And I'm a big fan of filmmakers who slyly you start to realize that all of their movies are kind of taking place in the same universe, you know?
It's like Edgar Wright and the like Cornetto trilogy, or you know, stuff like that, where you're like,
totally.
These are not necessarily like you watch this one and then you watch this one and they're all telling us the same story, but yeah, it's like the same universe or the same vibe or it's something like that. And it's very, I always love that when artists do that, whether it's through, you know, like books that are all written by the same person that kind of take place in a similar universe, and you kind of touch on different characters, or whatever. But that one definitely, I was like, that can't possibly be, and then I was like, nope, it is. That's exactly what it is.
That's Machete.
Machete. That's exactly like started in this like zany kids movie of 2001. So
yeah,
Robert Rodriguez, clearly the epitome of an artist who is also a consummate business person.
Also, I learned, interesting to me as a person who admires directors who also write and draw, he also did a comic strip in when he was at the University of Austin, I think, called Los Hooligans. He named his first production company Los Hooligans because he was thinking like people who knew the comic would recognize the production company, and sort of like fans of his stuff already would recognize the branding and move over to his work. So also a cartoonist, which I love that. I love me a Terry Gilliam, a Jon Favreau even does it. Ridley Scott, not a cartoonist, like an actual artist. Ridley Scott could draw some shit. Anyway, so there's so I love that connection too. But yeah, Robert Rodriguez, a man of many talents, a Renaissance man, if ever there was one.
If ever there was one, a Renaissance man for the modern age. Next in our little outline is like talking about characters, but I actually since we've been talking about Robert Rodriguez, I feel like this movie is going to be less about the actual like themes and play-by-play of Spy Kids, and it's just about like the production and all of that, which is fine.
Totally. No, there are, I mean, this is why I picked this movie partially. I did not expect it to be a great like story, you know, but there are lots of different things to appreciate about different kinds of movies, you know, and like some movies are really about the visual artistic expression of things and the cool execution of ideas that are visually and
Yeah,
and being a kids movie, you can hang the hat of all of these cool ideas on a very simple theme of like family is good. So like that's
sure.
nice, like the two siblings mainly sort of fight each other, but in getting their family back they realize like I do kind of like the theme that like keeping a family together is hard and it's worth fighting for. It's not worth it to
For
keep
sure.
secrets from one another. It is good. So, but that's a very simple story upon which is hung much of this very
The
interesting, ludicrous,
fucking
insane
tech,
production design, character design, and stuff like
it's
that.
like, yeah, this like Technicolor insanity code.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the thing that I did a kind of a deep dive on, because I was so, first and foremost, taken aback by the Mr. Floop, played by Alan
Hmm.
Cummings, who I'll talk about in a
Ah,
second as a character.
the
Love
best.
him. But he has like this kids show, and it has these
The most insane children's show. If my
like,
kid was watching this, I'd be like, "Stop! You're not
knock
allowed to
it
watch
off.
this."
It is the characters that are in this like quote unquote kids show are genuinely horrific.
Yeah.
They are straight up monsters, and it's like all of these like really stretched out and weird faces with these bodies that don't really make any sense. And then there's these
Yeah.
goddamn like thumb creatures that are just like, imagine a
Oh
body,
yeah.
like imagine a
No,
stick
there's
figure. So imagine a
yeah, they're
stick
called
figure, right?
they're called thumb thumbs.
Thumbs. So in a stick figure, you have two arms, two legs, and a head. Okay, now imagine that is in 3D and it's all thumbs. All of those things are thumbs. And they will haunt
Yeah.
my nightmares forever. I hate them
Yeah.
a lot. So,
I think it's really cool the way that they design the thumb thumbs because I think that your natural inclination is that the front of your thumb, if it was a face, would be the
would
the
be the
the palm
pad.
of your thumb,
Yeah,
right?
the
The
pad
pad
of
of
your
your
thumb.
thumb. But the way that these creatures are designed, and I think you would probably do the same thing with the arms because because they kind of like
Yeah, based
that's
on
how a
how they
hand works.
move,
You
right?
use the palm, but but the thumb thumbs are designed where everything is sort of backwards to that, so that
It's
the fingernail
horrifying.
of the thumb is the head, and it's the same with the arms. So the arms actually bend backwards when they do anything, and
I
it's
hate
like
it.
so fucking weird and awesome and like disturbing, and I love it so much.
I know,
I was
I
like,
love it.
what a way! It's like it's one little piece of like thinking outside the box.
Right. And so um the
I've heard a lot of actors really like working with Robert Rodriguez because he will
yeah,
actually, before they start working on a movie, he insists that they take a month to just sort of like come out to Austin and hang out. And he basically does like art therapy with them where he's like,
wow.
just draw something. And they're like, I don't draw. He's like, it doesn't matter. Like, just here's some pastels and like, let's just play around. And he'll like do things with them where he like tells them to paint and tells them to dance and tells them to do all these
Wow.
things. And they're like, it was a really like eye-opening creative experience of like just not being encumbered by like how good is my craft in this thing, but just like how creative and open can I get my brain to be. So I think that's also a very cool
I
thing about his
I can
working
see that.
style. Sorry, I should stop
I
trying to move my iPad.
stop trying to move shit. So I, because there are these like crazy creatures that are,
Hmm.
what are they in the show? They're called like
Flugels.
flugels. That's right. Jesus Christ, this
I'm
movie.
pretty sure it's Flugels. Hang on, I should
I
look it up and make sure that
I'm
I get that
not
right.
I'm not
But I think I
convinced.
wrote it down. It's like, yeah, it's thumb thumbs and flugels. I'm almost
Thumbs and
positive.
flugels. I am not, again, I'm not convinced that I wasn't having like an active hallucination while watching this film, because I was just like, what's happening? But so the flugels, though, those like
Oh,
crazy
sorry, fugalies.
flugalies, are you kidding me? Oh my god. Okay.
Wait, Spy Kids Fooglies. Is this what they're called? Yes, Floop's Fooglies is what the name of the show is.
Jesus Christ.
So,
Floop's
yeah.
Fooglies. All right, great. So these creatures
Yeah.
are truly a marvel of creature shop design.
Yeah.
If anybody, I think, talks to Evan and I for more than 5 minutes about movies, it is very obvious we love art departments. We are fully behind art
Fans of
departments. They are
that's
incredible.
fabrication and that
Uh,
yeah. And of course there's many
Fabrication,
departments
makeup,
within what
yes.
we consider art department. Like these are maybe considered different department, but we just mean makeup, costumes, sets,
Fabrication.
uh
All
fabrication,
all
props,
of these
etc.
things, all of these things, right? And so I was like, wow, really incredibly talented people made all of these, like silicone and plasticine and different like pieces and body parts and whatever. And so I was going down IMDb and I kept seeing everybody credited in the makeup department was from this studio called Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger EFX Group Incorporated, or
Ooh,
KNB Group.
I I love the name already.
I know. So basically, these crazy ass motherfuckers, they are behind some of the most insane and wild makeup and like practical effects for and like fabrications in Sam Raimi movies, Quentin Tarantino movies, Robert Rodriguez movies, Wes Craven movies, Paul Thomas
Cool.
Anderson movies. They are wild. So this shop, KNB, was founded in like the late 80s, 1988, by these three guys, Robert Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero, and Howard Berger, who were all freelancers through the 80s, and
Mhm.
they were kind of realized that they were working on similar projects, or they would be freelancers on the same projects. Um, a lot of them also came up through Tom Savini, who is another really incredible creature shop fabricator and creature
Mhm.
designer. And so these three dudes realized, like, hey, wait, we want to start a studio together. We want to get out of this freelance thing, and we want to actually have like our own creature shop, our own makeup artistry kind of thing.
Yeah.
They in their career, I think one of them, I can't remember which one of them. One of them is no longer involved in the studio as of like maybe 10 years ago. He kind of changed direction in his
He
life, but
dipped.
he
Mhm.
dipped. But so these guys, are I think a little similar to Robert Rodriguez in that they started this studio and they were like young and hungry and driven and were like, we're just gonna
Scrappy.
do
Yeah.
it. And so they kind of their career trajectory started off with kind of these like kind of schlocky horror movies, like B movie
Mhm.
horror movies, but they were
Yeah.
really good at it. But they were kind of known as a collaboration. They were known for these very like over the top gory horror movie, like really,
Mhm.
really insane. Like think about any um early 90s horror movie, right? Like that was kind of what they were
Right.
known for. Um
Yeah.
but
A lot of green
they
goop and blood.
Yes, a lot of blood, a lot of guts, like, they did, like, um but they, again, were these guys that just really wanted to be in this field, and they convinced Rob Reiner, to go to use their shop for Misery, which
Really?
so
Oh,
in
that's cool.
so initially, Rob Reiner was like, "No, like, it's so overblown, like, your work is so insane, like, it's not gonna
Yeah.
fit tonally with
I
this
don't trust
movie."
you. I'm making a grounded movie.
Pretty much, and he was like, "I'm just gonna use, like, visual effects for the gore and the whatever in Misery," and
Mhm.
they were like,
Yeah.
"No, no, 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 no. Here's, like, we can actually do this, like, super subdued, like, much more realistic version
Mhm.
for your movie,"
Yeah.
because I think one of them had, like, experience as a pre-med student or something, and like made all these cadaver
Oh,
like fake
whoa, that's
cadavers.
cool.
So they basically were like, no, 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 like we have been in this realm of doing these like overblown, over the top horror effects,
Yeah, but
but
that's not all we can do.
that's not all we can do. We can do more. And so they ended up working on Misery, which kind of became their like trajectory into these like higher budget, higher brow films to do the effects for.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and they and so they've been working in the film industry since 1998. And I mean, seriously, like check out their website and check out their like they have a resume on their website, you know, of like all the films that they've done, and you can see their
Mhm.
different photo galleries. They won an Academy Award and a BAFTA for their work on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Whoa,
They
really?
Yeah, they worked on The Walking Dead. They did all of the like uh what were
Oh,
the
crazy.
walkers.
So they're like
They
yeah, yeah.
they are legit. Like they have been in this business for decades and have just crushed on everything. Like they've worked with Quentin
That's so cool.
Tarantino on like Inglorious Bastards, and like you know how in Inglorious
Mhm.
Bastards like Brad Pitt has this like consistent like nasty looking scar around his neck, like that was them.
Yeah.
Like all of this
Oh,
stuff, and like
wow.
they've they are incredible. Like they are incredible technicians, and they tend to work with directors, especially like Robert Rodriguez, Quentin
Mhm.
Tarantino, that are these sort of like I don't know, they're mainstream and they're not. Like they've retained this sort of like sensibility of
Yeah,
grossness, of
scrappy-ish
scrappy.
or,
Yeah, of like
independent or whatever that is, yeah.
exactly, it is. It's kind of that like and how they kind of just like got their start was sort of similar to Robert Rodriguez of just like we got to be really scrappy and we just have to like fight for the fact that we are good at what we do and that we know what
Yeah.
we're doing. Um and on like they worked on Reservoir Dogs, like the torture scene in
Mhm.
Reservoir Dogs was all
Oh, they
them.
did the ear.
Yep, that was all them
Oh,
and
cool.
they basically like again they kind of like bartered with Quentin Tarantino to like get that shot at that movie
Yeah.
and it's just it's an incredible creature shop and you know in the first like I think in I think it was Misery or one of the other early projects that they worked on they like lost a bunch of money doing it because they were doing the work themselves and it was like kind of
Right.
above their scope of what they
Classic
were able to do
cla
but they
cla
were
classic story of a practical effects house, let me tell
I
you.
let me tell you
Being in
but
that
they
world a little bit myself, whew,
yep,
yeah.
they just operate outside of their budget for a little bit but they were like we're doing this so that we can get these other projects
Yeah.
and they're yeah like again check out their website it's insane so
Say
the
their name one more time.
it's KNB,
Uh-huh.
Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger, EFX Group Incorporated. So Robert
Okay, cool.
Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero, and Howard Berger. You can look up KNB Group. I'm pretty sure it's something to that effect. That's their
That's
website.
That's
Um,
such an inspiring story to know that this group of people freelancing, doing this life of working for other people, and essentially that's what they have continued to do. But the fact that they had this instinct to combine forces and to be business people and to try to make something more than just the sort of day to day, because it's a grind, man, doing that stuff as
yeah,
a freelancer. It's a grind as a studio head, as a person running a studio too, but like you have a little bit more control and you feel more in control of what you are capable of bargaining for, it seems like.
right.
So that's just a very and the artistry on display. I mean, to me the coolest thing about their work in Spy Kids specifically is how I love the device in the movie itself, how like they they do this little visual indication where like because the flugels. I've already forgotten what they're.
Fuglies? What are they called?
The
The
fuglies.
Fuglies.
Fuglies, yeah. The
Fuglies.
Fuglies, what the Fuglies are other spies that have gotten
Yeah.
trapped and
And like
transformed into
transform.
things.
Yeah.
But the way that they indicate what is going to happen to them when they become these sort of terrifying nightmare creatures on the Floop's Fooglies show is that they have a bust, a clay sculpture of
Yes.
their heads, and then they kind of like crush it with their hands, and then
Remake
but they
it.
actually have a very like artistically designed sort of stretched clayified version of their face. So all of and it's a cool visual indication of like what's going to happen to them. And the fabricators and the designers made these giant pieces based on people's faces that actually look like they're stretched out the way
Yes.
that it would in clay
And
if
it's
you like
really
smash it with your fingertips or whatever.
it's really cool to see that too. Because like Alan Cummings' character, Mr. Floop, he has these sort of like plasticine busts of people, and like Evan's saying, he'll sort of like squash it and stretch it. But those also, like, again, shout out to the makeup, art, and props department. Those are gorgeous plasticine models.
They're
Like they are
very cool. Yeah.
beautiful looking. And
Yeah.
it's like it does make visual sense, because it's like, yeah, if you're a fabricator and you're gonna take someone's face and then like make it look weird and make pieces like silicone pieces or whatever that are gonna like look right on that person's face but then like completely distort it, you would start with like, well, here is what their actual face looks like, and like this is
Mhm.
how I'm gonna add and stretch to it. um
Yeah.
and it's very like Terry Gilliam-esque in a way, because it is very
Yeah, totally.
physical. It's and this is actually something that what's his name, Howard Berger said in an interview
Mhm.
with the LA Times in, I think, 2006. Um, Following the release of Jurassic Park in 1993, many artists worried that computer generated imagery might overtake the industry, forcing out practical effects. Uh,
Mhm.
Berger said that instead of panicking and changing their specialty, K&B decided to just, quote, write it out. And I think this is a great example of writing it out. Of that is a very
Mhm.
ballsy move to make, but this is
Yeah.
obviously a group of highly skilled craftspeople, um,
Mhm.
who, and they're still working today. Like they're still. It's not like, oh, they stopped working in 2005. Like they are still a product. They are still a studio. Like they are still doing stuff
Yeah.
today, right now.
When you're the best, you got to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and they just are these like super hardworking guys who came up at a time when they were like, we just got to be super scrappy about this, and we have to be the best, and
Yeah.
work with directors that get it, and work with
Yeah.
production teams that get the importance of practical effects, and not just using
Totally.
digital only. And obviously now digital effects are at a stage where they look, very convincing and very real. But practical effects are an absolute art form. They are
Yeah.
undeniably really cool. They add a different flavor to every film. And I think that's also partially why Spy Kids is sort of unsettling, is because they are practical effects. Like there
Yes.
are dudes in suits and like with all these prosthetics on that have these weird bodies, and that
Yeah.
that are just, they're so real in the physical space as the other actors, that it's like,
Yeah.
wow, that would be incredibly upsetting and unsettling if we were there. Oh my god. It's
I think that's
so
what makes it cool these days, because at one point in time it was the only choice if you wanted to there was no choice. You had to do it that way. Whereas now there's something powerful about the statement of doing really having the prosthetics be front and center and the silicones, just all that kind of fabrication, makeup effects, etc., be front and center, especially in a really heavily designed movie like this one.
Oh my God.
Not just as not just as like, blood effects for zombie or something like that. It makes a statement that it is a choice by the filmmakers to actually
Absolutely.
go that route. And I think that's really cool. And obviously I'm a big fan, and it's nice to see. And of course, like, this is what, people, I think, uh, don't wrap their head around as much, where it's like it 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 has to be like all computer, or it has to be all practical. But the reality of filmmaking is any tool that you have in your tool belt should be used to make better art, to make
Yeah.
something that fits the tone of what you're trying to make. So like, there should absolutely be these great digital CGI houses that can do things that you just can't do practically in the real world. There should also be these incredible like fabrication, prop and makeup effects houses that do things that you still just can't get just by doing it in a computer,
Yeah.
and it's a again, it's a choice because it has a particular feel to it that still can't really be replicated, no matter how good the CG effects go. So
Yeah,
I'm all for all of it being utilized, and these guys sound like they're really good at what they do.
they are very good at what they do. And in this movie, there is definitely a blend of CGI and practical stuff at the same time. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
oh, go ahead.
before we move on from Fooglies, I also just want to point out that there are two fun cameos in the movie of other Austin filmmakers. Um, Richard Linklater
No
of
way.
Slackers and Dazed and Confused
Yeah.
and many other great movies, Waking Life, Scanner Darkly, uh, is in the movie as Cool Spy. I didn't pick him out, but I'm looking up at the IMDb. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
cool, another. So clearly Robert knows him. Makes sense. They're both Austin
Yeah.
filmmakers, and another Texas-based filmmaker, Donegan, who is the first um, spy that you see get his face stretched out, that has like the big wide smile and I think the green
Yes.
face, is played by Mike Judge, aka King of the Hill, Beavis and
What?
Butthead, fuck,
What?
Idiocracy.
That's Mike.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's Mike Judge, which just made me laugh to know that Mike
Wow.
Judge is also in this movie as
That's
with this
so
little
funny.
cameo.
That's so
Yeah, so
funny.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think, okay, so now I want to talk about the one character that I want to talk about, at least on my
Great,
side,
let's get into it.
who, because we've talked about this like crazy creature design, also great costumes, just like over the top
Oh yeah, and
costuming
production design.
and production design.
I
Oh my
really like the
God.
Spanish house that they live in. I want to live in that house, and I really love the elements of puzzle pieces, that like
Yes.
the stained glass window that are made into puzzle pieces in the big evil Fugli's castle.
Yes, the
So
production,
that's all I'll say
the
about that. But they're great and weird and ostentatious, but in a good way, I think.
production design, like, just went all in on this one. It's everything kind of looks like Mexican, like Spanish colonial style mixed with like Gaudi esque
Yes, there's
buildings.
a very
Everything
like,
kind of
yeah,
looks like
it feels
melting
like a.
ice creams and anemones
Mhm.
and all this stuff.
Yeah,
It's
there's some great
wild.
Gaudi influence for sure,
It's
yeah.
great. So okay, but now, so
But we wanted to talk about,
I
yeah,
want
you
to
were about
talk
to talk
about
about
this
it.
character, Mr. Floop, who is played by Alan Cumming. And I wrote down, my description of this character was, if Willy Wonka and Salvador Dali had a mescaline fueled evening together and created a golem from their shared hallucinations.
That
That is
sounds about
Mr.
right.
Floop.
Yeah.
Like, he is insane, like so over the top. And
Yeah.
I'll just the man, the actor Alan Cummings, like, what a bicon, absolute amazing, like LGBTQ plus advocate.
This is a bi icon, I'm assuming.
Oh, a bicon? Yes, that is what a bi icon is.
Just checking for the straights to get caught up to speed.
Learn a parlance. So he's totally a bicon. He is an incredible person. He's an incredible actor. He's been like openly bi for a very long time in the industry. Also a proud supporter of Scottish independence, which, like, fuck yeah, man, absolutely. He's just the best. He has a very fun and exciting, like, relationship to his queerness in the projects that he takes on and the things that he does. So, this character, Mr. Floop, is this crazy, larger than life, again, like Willy Wonka-esque is sort of the closest comparison I could make.
Yeah.
He's sort of the bad guy. He's sort of redeemable. He's like a capital C character.
Yeah, word.
And his costumes are foppish and over the top, and his character is like foppish and over the top, and everything is heightened around him.
Yeah.
Like,
they clearly designed that jacket of his to look good while he was running down the corridor. Because I was like, damn, that really flows. That really flows nicely as he's running. It has a great whooshy quality to it that just is captured on camera so well.
Yes. Shout out to the costume designer, Deborah Everton, who actually worked on Star Trek, I think Deep Space Nine? I'm not sure.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
The best one.
The best one. She's a really
There's
awesome...
many great Star Treks, but I love Deep Space Nine. And some of the costumes are truly phenomenal in that for a TV production too.
Yes, so Deborah Everton has worked primarily a lot on kind of like sci-fi fantasy-ish kind of films. But yeah, her vision for Mr. Floop is 10 out of 10. It is like brocade vests with ascots and these like big, like flowy smoking jacket thing. It just is so good. And he as a character, again, this whole film is a fucking fever dream.
Yeah.
I don't have anything other to say about it other than that. Really, it's a total fever dream. I don't really know what happened in it. I wasn't sure. I did watch the whole thing mere hours ago. No thoughts.
Yes. So yeah, before we wrap it up, I would feel sort of remiss if I did not mention
the main characters in this film.
Yes, let's just talk about them for a moment, because these kids at the time carried a franchise for 3 movies, which is kind of a crazy feat to do. So
like
playing
13 to
Carmen
18 and like 9 to 15 or something, like, yeah, nuts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the girl was probably 11 and the boy was
13.
Probably like 13 in the first one.
She was 13 in the first one, and the boy was 9 in the first one.
Okay, that tracks. So Carmen Cortez, the older sister, played by Alexa Vega, now Alexa Pena Vega. I guess that's her married name. And Junie Cortez, the younger brother, played by Daryl Sabara. Yeah, they're kids, they're kid actors, but they bring a great lightness to things, and clearly they must have been at least somewhat fun or easy for Robert Rodriguez to work with, because they were in 2 sequels, Spy Kids 2 and Spy Kids 3D, which is just great to know.
Yep.
And yeah, they're very serviceable, and I actually kind of, I don't know, I liked what they brought. They both have, what I'll say about them is that they both have a high energy to them. Like they
They
bring all
do.
the energy that they have to each scene, which is not always easy for a kid actor, but they were clearly
No.
encouraged in great ways. And I was watching this cute interview with Alexa Vega from more recently,
Oh
where she
yeah.
was describing how she had this super duper crush on one of the other kid stunt doubles, and it was like her first kiss, and they dated on and
Stop
off for a long
it.
time. I know. And
Stop
apparently
it.
on Spy Kids 3, there was like this secret part of the set that all like 17 of the kid actors like would like find, that they found together, and they would like go in there and just party and like play music and like drink when they weren't supposed to, and apparently became a big problem for the production because these kids would just fuck off when nothing was happening on set. And then people would be like, where are the kids? They need to get, and they're all like teenagers or like younger than teenagers, but
Oh my
I
god.
don't know, the way she described it, it just sounded like a really like fun, hectic, chaotic time of like being a teenager and like being on a film set and just fucking off and having a good time. And
Wow.
which just sounds like, it seems so nice to know. And okay, just two things about sequels. The Spy Kids 2 has Steve Buscemi in it, who has
Yep.
the fucking craziest line, and I just want to get it out because I get the
Please.
feeling that we're not going to do Spy Kids 2 or Spy Kids 3D ever on this podcast.
We're not.
Um, we're not. Steve Buscemi has a line in Spy Kids 2 that is like, do you think that the reason God stays in heaven is because he too is scared and terrified of his own creations? Like,
Jesus.
whoa, that's a crazy line for a kid's movie.
Praise the
um,
Lord.
and then Spy Kids 3D has the first on-screen appearance of Hollywood hunky middle America man Glenn Powell of my favorite movie of the
Stop it.
21st century, Twisters.
Yes. It all, you know what? We haven't brought up Twisters a lot this season, but it's
Mm-mm.
coming back around, y'all. Glenn Powell,
Yeah.
Twisters, like, let's go. It all comes back. It all comes back.
Yeah.
The
Oh man,
cinematic masterpiece that is Twisters.
what a stupid great movie.
Yeah. Man, I don't know
But
what
yeah,
else. I don't know what else I have to say about this movie, honestly. I feel like I've really said everything I wanted to say, and none of it was about the movie plot or characters itself. It was all about the production.
hell
And how
yeah.
much I just fucking love Alan Cumming, like as a person, as an activist, as an actor, and just major.
Yeah, and shout out to Tony Shalhoub too. I mean, so
Yes.
clearly we both have an actor that we are all about from this particular situation.
Yeah, and also just I think this movie did surprise me just in researching it more, of being like, oh wow, this is a really great example of how, if you're an artist, if you are somebody that wants to do creative things with other people, film,
Mhm.
whatever it is, like, if you are scrappy and talented and also can like merge the business side of things with the sort of artistic side of things, like,
Mhm.
really wild, crazy things can happen. Because like this movie is nothing if not an absolutely insane ride.
Yeah, it is definitely lovely to see what all of the different departments, the different creative departments were able to pull off. And in a way where the stakes, I don't know what the stakes were for this movie, but like, it's just, I love movies, kids movies that swing high and are just like, look, man, we're here to have fun, okay?
Yeah.
Like, just have a good time, and that will translate. And I think that this movie has a very dedicated cult following of people who really dig it from a particular point of time in their lives when they were young, and it spoke to them in a way. So yeah,
props.
if you want to check out, props to that. If you want to see a new reinterpretation, Spy Kids Armageddon just came out 2023.
Sure did.
On Netflix. It's, I think, the 5th in the series, also directed and written by Robert Rodriguez. So hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Keep them coming, Robbie.
Keep them coming, Robert. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts and takeaways of this movie? My
final thoughts and takeaways are, if you have kids and want something that is at least somewhat wholesome, that won't make you want to gouge your eyeballs out and want to have a little nostalgia for the early 2000s, this is a perfect movie to put on and just have a few guffaws at. And and shout out to returning cast member favorite of in addition to Danny Trejo, Robert Rodriguez is always casting Cheech Marin.
Always.
He's in there as Uncle Felix, and he's great. So gotta love a Cheech Marin thing. If you're ever in Riverside, California, check out the Cheech Marin Center for the Arts, or whatever it's called. It's a great gallery full of Latino, Hispanic, Mexican American artists, and there's some really great art on display from Cheech Marin's personal collection. Would recommend.
Wow, look at that. Yeah, yeah, man, my final thoughts and takeaways is I was like, I finished watching this movie and I was like, man, I want to read like a master's dissertation on film theory about this movie from like a post-contemporary surrealist standpoint or something. Like, it's so out there and it's so wild. And it is very fun, and it's
that's what I appreciate about the movie the most, is that it is a because in Hollywood, especially at this time, but even still to this day, kids entertainment is looked at as this like quick money grab where you can just like, kids will watch anything. So just throw some shit in their eyeballs and like make some scatological humor, poop jokes, like give them what they want. Just don't think too hard about it. Who cares? It's for kids. They're going to go watch it if we market it to them, because kids are dumb. So like, give us your money, which is just such a sad and unfortunate and depressing way to think about movies. So this movie, I am glad like that somebody who really cares about making movies, who cares about making fun movies, did something for kids that was like, I'm not just going to phone this in. I'm going to ask people to be very creative to make things that are cool and interesting and really out there. Just like go really wild. And again, he's like, Robert Rodriguez was thinking, I want to make a movie for kids that feels like it was made by a kid. And I think he accomplished that.
He absolutely nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
So. No. All right. Well, that brings us to everybody's favorite time of the show, which is Vibe check. It's time for a vibe check.
Vibe check.
Vibe check. For those of you who may be listening for the very first time, I'm sorry if this is your first episode.
I'm not. I think you get a lot out of this.
Great. I think it's great. But so Evan and I rate films. We don't use a number system or a star system or anything like that. We rate films on two things and two things only, which is how is the story and how are the vibes. So Evan, how is the story? How are the vibes?
I got to tell you, man, vibes are in this season. I think that people are really getting down with, I'm just seeing so many blog entries that are like all about vibe, blah, 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 or like, whatever. But we brought it first. You know what? Vibes of this movie, like, it's not a world I would want to live in like forever.
Fuck
But
no. Fuck no. Are you kidding me?
but I like but the vibes are high energy, like exciting in a kid kind of way, and just a little bit of good innocence thrown in there. So, I'm going to say vibes are, again, this is not what I would call like a vibey movie, but I really like the Willy Wonka-esque, like kind of eccentric, kind of nightmarish, but also sort of fun uh, vibe that the whole thing brings. I mean,
Yeah.
the plot is very like strung together, so the vibes better be good.
I
And if you're a kid, if I was like 8 years old, I'd be vibing out on this movie for sure.
Okay, so my note for this section was in terms of the story and the vibes was story, it's insane. Vibes, they're insane. I don't have anything to add to that. I think I nailed it.
I think you did too. Yeah, hell
I'm being
yeah,
honest.
insane.
Insane. And then so also because this movie is in our second season of which the theme is siblings, we're also giving movies a sibling scale out of
Mhm.
10. So to
Yes.
me, this movie was like a 5 out of 10 sibling
Mhm.
scale.
Yeah, I was a little more generous. I said 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I said, I dig what the kids are doing, I mean, maybe just because it might just be because I don't specifically identify with their sort of dynamic where, like, one
Yeah,
of them is kind of like the dumb one, but also has good things to do. And one of them is kind of like I don't know. I don't know, we never had a full-on contentious sibling relationship growing up like this with like full-on like fighting or whatever. I mean,
no.
there were moments, but for the most part I felt like we were. So it might just be that I don't identify with this particular one.
I think
um
that was I think that was also my thing was that I was like, "Oh, I know that obviously people who have contentious sibling relationships exist, but I was just like, oh, that's so outside of my understanding of having a sibling that I was like, I don't get this. I was
yeah,
like, why are
but
you
but I
yelling?
do but I do love the arc of the siblings in the movie, as minimal as it is in the movie
Yeah,
itself, of like how they come around to being like, I don't know. It is cool to have a story about two siblings sort of, having at each other and then slowly being like, but we do have to save our parents though. Like there's some
yeah.
serious shit's going on.
I don't know.
So
Yeah,
yeah, not the
yeah.
worst sibling
Not
relationship
that
on
bad.
screen. But obviously they're kids, so they don't get into any of the like deeper stuff. So yeah, for me,
No.
7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Pretty decent
Yeah.
representation
Yeah.
on screen.
I love that. I love that. Well, amazing. That brings us to the very end of our episode where I tell people to follow us on social media if you are participating in that trash fire. You can find us on YouTube at Brother Sibling Movie. You
Mhm.
can find us on Instagram at Brother Sibling Movie.
Oh yeah.
You
You
can
can get us
email
on
us.
all of the podcast platforms now.
No, no,
Spotify,
hold
Apple
on.
Podcasts. Oh, or
Just
not.
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let's not go crazy.
Okay.
Just Spotify and
Meredith
Apple
is
Podcasts.
Meredith is in control of the RSS feed, so I will let the good
I
people
am
know where they can find our shit.
I am in I am in a sort of um when you're like trying to contain a dog that like sees a squirrel it wants to chase, and you're
Mhm.
like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on, but I have to contain this. That's how I'm in
Yeah.
control of our RSS feed. So
Okay.
you can find us on Apple Podcasts, though. That was a pain in the ass to figure out, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify.
Woo. Nice.
You can also email us if you have a preferred podcast platform. Please email it to us at brothersiblingmovie@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of them out there, and each of them take an annoying amount of work to set up. So
Yeah.
if you want one, let me know, and I will figure it out.
And we are a team of two people.
Two, and
Yes.
during allergy season, one and a
One and a
quarter,
half.
one and a quarter,
One-
very generously.
yeah.
Very generously. So, You can find me on Instagram at lon_daddy_lives_here. Lon Daddy lives here, underscores between the words. Evan, where can people find you?
The people can find me on my portfolio website. Everything I do is under the moniker Art of Evan K, where you can see my drawings and my film work. So that's artofevank.com, my website. Check me out on Instagram as Art of Evan K, also on Blue Sky, Art of Evan K, and my YouTube channel, Art of Evan K. So all that's fun. And check me out on Letterboxd, where you can read my dumb reviews of movies as Evan Kerna, Koehne.
We did it. We did another episode. I have to pee so badly. I can't concentrate.
It sounds like we need to end the episode so you can use the loo.
And I'm gonna go sleep for the next 12 to 18 hours.
Good. I'm so excited for you. That sounds
And
like
then I'm gonna cover all my windows in plastic or something. I'm not sure. It's very bad here.
I'm gonna spend the day editing our fucking next episode, which man, this is an ADHD podcast. It's a good thing that there are deadlines, otherwise I'd never get anything done.
But yeah, baby.
All right.
I
This
love
has
you
been
very
fun.
much.
I love you.
Oh wait, hey Evan, one last little bit of advice.
Yes, tell me.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Yeah, motherfuckers. All right. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.